Andy.
Eric.
I was gonna call you Uncle Andy.
Most people do.
I know. I feel like you're like the fun uncle. You're a funkle.
All the nieces and nephews love Uncle Andy.
Yeah. You'd be the fun uncle.
Goof.
Yeah.
Just such a goof.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Messing around.
Yeah.
Funny.
I say the things in the room that other people are thinking.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
This is my starting question.
Okay. Hope I could top you.
I don't think it's not as tough as the piano key question.
Okay.
It's just I just want to see where your head's at with it.
Yeah.
If you had to have a job,
yeah,
it can't be anything related to hockey or what you do now.
Like nothing. Okay.
Can't have any relationship whatsoever. So like no fitness, no hockey training, like nothing that's in the industry that has to do with hockey. What would the job be that you would have as your full-time job?
Would it, if I can just, I don't have to be good at it right now?
No, like assume,
I speak to people. Why?
I don't like that answer.
Well, it's not your life.
Yeah, but like that's not a real job. Like in order to
consulting is.
Yeah, but like consulting about what? Like you would have to have an expertise in something. So it's like
okay,
what would this?
So
that's more
mine
what I
would
mean.
be leadership for youth.
No, that's related. Can't pick that.
How is it related?
Because leadership.
Okay, I don't really like adults.
It can't be anything where it's like you're drawing on your experience from hockey. It can't be anything related to that. It has to be like a completely different job.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I would probably just early on learn the construction field. And no, for sure, construction field with a real good mind for buying real estate and selling real estate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you want to be like a trades guy?
No, not a trades guy. Like my brother Ray J, who I love, is my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't come from a place with a lot of education, and we had to make our own thing, right? So he's grinded it out, and he learned construction on his own, man. Hardworking guy, but very, very, very bright. So he just started a lot of construction. So started fixing bathrooms, started doing that. He's smart, right? He can do electrical, handy. He's amazing at it.
Yeah.
And then he was doing tiling for Tim Hortons. He's just done everything. So what he started to do was buy old houses. And I mean houses that I'm like, why the heck would you buy this? Like it was dirt floors.
Oh, like doing the flips.
Flipped a lot, and he's very handy. So I could just seeing firsthand what he's done with that business is good. Yeah. So I would say, because here's the thing, right? It's a lot of times you go with your passion, which is good. Like, so for me, hockey and sports, and like I said, I'd go and be youth for kids, like a leadership thing, which I've done. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've already done that. And it's my passion. I love, like the other day I was out of town and I was working with a group of coaches. And at the end of it, they were like so happy with it. And I'm like, I like making you happy, like teaching, giving what I know to you. So that's the thing that I've always loved to do. So what I was saying is about going with your passion is fine and it's great. But going with your passion doesn't always necessarily give you the best life later. And I'm not carving my life by any means. But when you look at it like a real intellectual way of building your life, which I was not intellectual at 17, 18, 39, no, whatever, when I was young, I went with passion all the time.
Yeah.
And but if I would have redid that, I would have mapped out, okay, work hard for a little bit and do some construction or something like that, and then like save some money and invest that into that business, and buy land, buy property, flip it, and it's I think I'm not an expert obviously, but I see people that do that well, and that's a very good lifestyle. I think. I mean, I don't see the ins and outs of it. I mean, I know you're going to have to deal with lawyers. You're going to have to deal with insurance. You're going to have some deals that you thought were good that were bad. You're going to buy a property and, the government or the city maybe screw you here and there. Mm-hmm. I get all that. So I'm not saying that everything's good about it. But when you really look at buying this piece of property right here that I'm talking into for $5 and fix this and do something to it and sell it for $100, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you do that often. And then you have... they're all good assets, right? You can always sell real estate. And what they say is real estate never goes down or it always goes up, or property. So that's the way I look at it. And I look at people that do it and I go, that's a really good life, because at the end of the day, you have a life. if you want. I mean, you could keep grinding, or you could just slow down and say, I'm good. But I think once you understand the business, I think you go through life a whole different way, right? You're not just driving through Windsor and going, okay, we're going here. You're driving through and you see that open field and you go, I wonder what I could put there, or wonder if that's for sale. I wonder if that's a good deal, because really, what's the effort,
Yeah.
right? So that's I think that's what I would do.
So if I had to boil it
I have
down
one
to
more too.
what? Yeah, you can't pick one more.
Okay, that's the
You
one.
only get one.
Okay, that's the one.
Yeah. So if I had to boil it down to one thing, would you be like being into like kind of land or property development and like understanding the ins and outs of that? If I had to like
Yeah, I would
take
say
it down
that.
to like a
I would say that would.
boilerplate
I would say
kind of
that
thing.
would probably be the
Yeah.
answer.
Okay.
What about you? Because that's the next question.
Mine's in the kind of in the same vein. I feel like I would want. So my initial thought would be I would want to be a guy that designs rockets. So I'd want to work at like SpaceX or something like that. That'd be sick. But only if I can also build the rocket. So I wouldn't want to just be the guy that sits in the chair and just like sketches out how it looks or does the CAD drawings or whatever. I would want to be like the guy that gets to go as a tech and like do the welding, do the actual labor work, because do the electrical, do the all the gas stuff, because it's fascinating to me, and I can't think of a more inspiring job than being a part of exploring space. I actually can't think of anything that's more inspiring than that in life. It's like if you make
Actually, inspiring or interesting?
both, but inspiring, because it's like you can't have a bigger purpose than that. It's like, hey, let's make humanity multiplanetary, which is like that's the goal of SpaceX. It's like there's nothing that is more impactful to life, because then all the things that trickle down from that, everything we have today basically comes from the fact that guys that work on technology in space ends up trickling down. So it's like everything that we use today in terms of electronics and whatever basically comes from in the 60s when they were developing the space shuttle. So everything's kind of been a derivative since then.
Like the day you were when you were explaining the transistor to me, would that be similar?
Right.
Right.
So the people that push the pace on technology, those are the big breakthroughs that end up shifting how the world is. So I can't think of anything that's more inspiring than that in terms of having a global impact. That's why I like Elon so much, because he's like just dominating every industry that actually impacts the most amount of people possible, whether it's the rockets or the electric cars or whatever. So, anyways, but only if I can also do the work, because a lot of those kinds of jobs, if you're the designer, you don't get to do the work. They have other guys that's their job, and I'm attracted to like the physical labor. I enjoy doing physical work, and I don't want to be naive about it, because if I have to do it every day, like if I had to be a construction guy, bricklayer, electrician, where you're doing like a hands-on job, and you're a plumber where you're grinding it out every day, maybe that gets old. But the thought of it for me is like super. Like even the other day, we put up a shooting thing in the corner, and we had to anchor it to the wall, and I loved every second of it. Like the construction, like putting it up, and the feeling of finishing a project I love that feeling. Even like last summer, I helped one of my buddies that bought a house plant trees in his backyard, and there was like these things were like 300 pounds, and we had to roll these things to get into the holes that he dug, whatever. And then when it was done and the trees were in and the landscape was done, it looked great. It was like, this is sick. Like we did that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I think that would be the rocket thing, but being able to build it, because then you get to see when it's done, and it's like you did that. Like you were instrumental in developing that.
Hey, dude, rocket science this is not a joke.
Yeah, I know. It's so fascinating. So that would probably
that's what you went to school for, is that stuff. So
yeah, but that would be a very dumbed down version of that. But yes, but it was yeah, but it was it's I just find it fascinating. If it can't be that, if I can't do the actual work though, then I think I would be something along the lines of what you're saying, like something where I kind of know a bit about all the trades, not necessarily expert level, but from the woodwork to the drywall to the framing to the electrical to the plumbing, like knowing enough where I could do little jobs, because then that'll give me enough kind of base knowledge where if I like had a company, I would know enough where I would have a plumbing guy, a drywall guy or whatever, but I know enough to be able to manage it kind of thing and know what's going on. And then that turns into like the land development thing that you're talking about. So I'd probably be along the same lines as what you were saying. But the physical work, like being actually doing the tasks and then completing the job, that would be instrumental in me wanting to do
I
it.
think it would give you a deeper understanding too.
100%.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't like not getting my hands on it.
Mhm.
Like I want the hands on. That was
Mhm.
one of the biggest deterrents for me not going into engineering and sticking there, was because I didn't actually get to do the stuff.
Yeah.
It was just I
Yeah,
would
you're just pen and paper doing math, right?
design it, stamp it, and then I have to hand it off to this guy
Yeah.
because at this company they have workers that do that stuff, and I'm not allowed.
Yeah.
Like that's not my job; it's their
Yeah.
job. So I would actually want to be in the trenches doing the stuff.
Side
So,
note: How
yeah.
big is a rocket that they're sending from SpaceX? How big are they?
In terms of the like height or weight,
Yeah, let's
or
say
what do you
height.
mean?
Like they're big, right? That might be a ridiculous question.
They're insane. Like you wouldn't believe how big they are.
'Cause
So
when you see them in the sky, it looks like diddly shit.
yeah. So the thing about the rockets, I'll do the weight first. So for example, the SpaceX one that they're doing right now is called Starship, and that's going to be the one that's supposed to go to Mars.
Yeah.
That's the one that they're developing. So usually rockets are like 90% fuel by
Mhm.
weight, somewhere around that. It's like 90% of the weight of the rocket is the fuel that it takes to get out, basically. So that's one way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Okay, before you go,
Okay.
is it true that like the bulk of the fuel is used just to get it off the ground?
The hard, yeah. 'Cause
Metaphor for life, right there, eh?
Oh yeah, for sure. 0 to 1, man.
It's like that. They're talking about the real estate. The metaphor. The hardest part is is saving the money buying your first couple of properties, I assume. But it's the
Mhm.
same thing as in our sport. It's like you put in the heavy lifting and the discipline and all that stuff early, and then you see results later.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So the even when you learn it in physics, like there's two. So like the force of friction, for example, is something that slows things down. Yeah, I know. Metaphor for life again, though. Metaphor for life, right?
Yeah, friction.
So
yeah.
friction makes things go slower, right? That's the only reason that things don't just keep going forever. It's because of friction.
Yeah.
So if you slide a puck on the ice,
Yeah.
the only reason it will eventually stop is because there's friction there.
Yeah.
But the friction to get something moving to start is harder than keeping
makes
it
sense.
moving. So like when you do a sled push, getting the sled going is harder than keeping it going, right? So that's that. But anyways, so the I just pulled up the
Dimensions.
So it's 120 meters
Really?
tall. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't look like it.
No.
But that only makes sense.
Yeah. So anyways, that's my
I
starting
like it.
question
Thanks
for
for
you.
starting with that. Maybe people have tuned out already, but interesting, I think.
Yeah, it was just for me. I was just curious what your answer would be about.
Yeah, we
the
never
job
talked
thing.
about that
I know.
before.
It's cool, eh?
Yeah.
So anyway, so today we were talking about in the last couple of days we were talking about kind of around the theme of needing a skills trainer, or like how much you need to do things. And we had one of the dads came in and asked me a question about his kid
The other day,
and he was saying my kid is he overhandles the puck kind of thing, or his default move is to start stick handling instead of getting his feet moving. What drills can he do to help that? And I was explaining to him it's not really a drill that he needs to do, because he knows how to get his feet moving. He just needs to know where to apply which thing, right? And this kind of goes back to, we had a conversation about skill stuff a few weeks ago when we were talking about being able to apply your skills in the game, right? And knowing when to do it. So I was kind of explaining to him how to identify or point out to him when to use that. Get the puck, get your feet moving, versus get the puck, start stick handling, right? Kind of knowing which situation. So it kind of got me thinking, and you also brought up the idea of when you need a skills coach and when you don't, and when it's appropriate and when it's not. And then we were kind of talking about the costs that are associated with always having a skills coach, right? And so that kind of is what we're going to talk about a little bit today, is kind of having a development plan, or how to practice when you maybe can't afford to, or you have limited resources of whatever kind of sort. And I think a lot of people kind of ask about these kind of things too. It's a common question that guys will write in about, like, what's necessary to do, what's versus what's not. So I think that's a good place maybe to start, where you can kind of go.
And it was also the fact that I've had a few people seek me out to work. They come down to Windsor to come to this area to do some lessons with them. And then I've been out of town, like just on my way to, when I go to Guelph on the weekends, I've been booking a few things up in that area, Guelph, Kitchener. So I've been there in the last, had a few lessons. So one was with coaches, and it kind of opened my eyes because not open, no, it didn't open my eyes. It just reiterated what I already knew.
Mm-hmm.
But you get so deep in the forest you can't see the trees sometimes,
Yeah.
right? So but the feedback was, why am I saying that is, here's what happens is when I go to town or I get new people that come in, and when I'm not talking a big group setting, I'm talking about teaching a smaller group, because that's actually the best way to have skills instruction, right? Is they want to come back, they want to travel that back down because they thought it was worth it, parents and the kids. So that's number one. Number two, they said they learned a lot and they applied it at home and they were excited to learn. And they said it's like that you taught and there was correction and you could see the improvement in one session or two sessions. So when it comes down to the skill thing, as we're talking about, that's actually what you should have through a skills coach, right? Because if you don't have that, it's like maybe that's not a great investment, and maybe it's not a necessary investment. So that's that. So that's like I'm gonna say, like, before we go into like how to cut the cost down and all that kind of stuff, is like, what's the problem with skill development? So I'm very careful saying this because I know we get clipped up sometimes and it may come across the same way. So like the first caveat is like, if you think that you need to do skill development 5 days a week and there's no change in your mind, like, God bless you and the horse you rode in on, man, it's fine. You do you, but I'm just giving you the best, my opinion, based on my experience. And I'm cutting my own throat here because I run a skills
Yeah.
company. But okay, so let's be honest about this though. You've seen it. How many times do people say, "What's next? What's next? What's next?" And I say, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." Number one, I'm very, 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 very sensitive to what people spend. It's none of my business, but it's expensive. It has to be expensive to a certain degree. Number two, it's not necessary all the time. That's what I tell people. It's like, you don't need more. You don't need, just apply this and take a breather and all that kind of stuff. So like, I'm not contradicting myself. I'm being very honest. I'm
Yeah.
always honest with people
Yeah.
when it comes to this kind of stuff.
But I do the same thing. Like I was just talking to a guy. He has 2 kids that do the treadmill, and he was asking about his daughter, who's 6 or 7. And he was like, "Hey, can I get her on?" And I was like, "Well, why do you want to get her on the treadmill?" And then he goes, "Well, I don't know. Like she's at the age where she's kind of starting to get into skating, but she doesn't seem like super into it." And I'm like, "Stop." It's like, "Nope." It's like, if she's not into it, it's like, I was like, you don't want to pay me for her to be on. You don't want to pay us what it costs to be on the treadmill when she's not even into it. It's like, that's not what you should be doing. So it's like, it's about being honest. It's not about, padding the pockets or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So anyways, the problem with skill development is, number one, it costs a lot of money. So maybe that's not a problem. But number two is, do you actually know what you're getting out of it? And that's the biggest thing for me. Is, I said this a couple weeks ago. Like, someone was telling me how they're going to this power skater. They've been going there for a long time, and da 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 da. It's great. You got to see it. And I'm like, I can't tell. In fact, there's some things I could fix there real quick. Not or I could give you some things to improve on, because one of it was quickness. I said there's the explosiveness or the getting on the balls of your feet for the quick strides is not there. Now, it could be a function of being young, but like skating in general is not something that you would say this kid's been with an elite power skating coach for 2 years, right? So, but again, whatever you think is good for your kid, that's fine. But that's a lot of money for a lot of nothing, in my opinion, right? The main thing that I would say with a lot of the skill stuff is that there's like too many kids and not enough instruction. But now you almost can't blame the instructor, because if you're putting on 25, like in our camps, we explain that basically if there's 20 to 30 kids out there, you can't expect a private lesson, right? So we do drills that are generic, but we make sure we have enough instructors that there's the teaching points and the points where they're learning something and having some deficiencies taken care of, and the why is always explained. And then so the other thing is on the instruction is that if you're not getting those teaching points, the feedback, the you've done that right, or no, you need to fix this, then I'm not sure why you would pay for it, because like we've said this a million times, you can just put out, if it's just a bunch of pilots, you can just do it yourself.
yeah, if it's just
And you can
reps,
save yourself
yeah,
a lot of money.
yeah. Yeah.
right? Because and I'm going to be honest again. I've seen so many instructors, some that have worked for us, some that are that I've watched things. It's like all it is you went to YouTube and you took someone else's drills. I've seen people that take my stuff, which I encourage, take my stuff and run it. It's because the drills are the drills. The instruction is a whole different ballgame, right? And I know that most guys don't do a lot of the teaching, but when people do, it's a huge. I love to see it. So one time I was teaching in Detroit. I was working with there's Dylan Larkin, Ryan Kressler, JT Comfer, what's his Ian Cole, a bunch of college guys and
Was it Andrew
stuff.
Kopp there? Was he another
Andrew
one?
Kopp,
Yeah.
yeah, he was. So they were there, and I was doing some shooting stuff, and the current coach for the University of Michigan, Brandon Naurato, was watching, and he came up to me after. And he goes, "Andy," he goes, "I am so glad to see a guy teaching shooting the proper way." He goes, "I see everybody." So he went through like what I was doing. He goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "I know. No, most people don't teach it." He goes, "No, they just go through the motions." So he was like, he was happy to see someone teach the right thing, and I get the same way when I see someone go, "Yeah, that's a good program." Because I love to tell a kid, "Yeah, if you go there, you're getting the good stuff." But most of the time, you say you go there, you get a lot of kids on the ice, and someone's making some money. So it's not really.
Well, and I think the other thing about that is because we run camps where it's volume, like there's a lot of
100%.
kids, so it's like as long as you know what it is going into it, then fair enough. But it's when it's presented as something else, like you're getting, because everyone uses the what are the like the buzz terms, like the game transferable elite skills, like master skating, master shoot like Connor Bedard, like this kind of stuff, and it's normally just a bunch of fluff. So it's always a what is it saying that you're supposed to get out of this camp or out of this session or out of this training, and that's where it comes in, because I don't want to like totally carve the trainers either,
No,
because it's like at depending on how it's set up, as long as the goals are
yes.
clear, right?
Yeah, but my point to this whole thing, and I'm gonna ask a question to us, but my point to this whole thing is, do you from watching parents and kids, it's like there's the social pressure of this kid's doing this, this dad said this is good, and I want to keep up with the Joneses, or if I don't get on the ice and get instruction, it's going to be ruin my hockey. It's not true. And then also look at instructors. And I'm not saying you. Yeah, I am saying this. A lot of instructors haven't played at a very high level. So like, if your instructor is playing at relatively the same level you did, it's like, unless they're very good at teaching and they went on a different tangent, right, with hockey. So anyways, my thing is it necessary? Number one, is skill development or skill coaches necessary? And the answer would be, well, first of all, it's up to you. Like mom and dad, some people you're never going to change their mind anyways. But is it necessary? No, not necessary. Can it be helpful? Certainly can, in the right hands, in the right environment. And sometimes you want to do it just for extra skates. And if you know that going in, if you know, like you said, if you know what you're getting going in, and you just go in there to get extra ice and stuff like that, that's one thing. But is it absolutely necessary? No.
Yeah. The other thing I want to touch too is how much of it
That's my
is
next question.
Is that what you're gonna say?
I'm not an idiot,
Hey,
man.
man. We're just on
How
the
often,
same
right?
track
So
here.
yeah, so that's the question is it necessary? If it is, how often? If it's not, then I guess how often is not really a question, but you have to do something, I would think. So how often? Well, that's again, it's up to you. I can tell people. So my suggestion to people has always been this: if you have a good skills session or a good private lesson or a small group session once a week, that should be more than plenty. And here's why: because and think about it. Okay, so if you play travel hockey or whatever hockey, and you play on the weekends mostly. Okay, so you're on the ice 1 to 3 times a week, right? It might be a tournament, whatever. During the week, you're going to have 2 practices. So that's 3, 4, 5 times a week already. If you need to go on the ice more than that, it should be for a real specific reason. It shouldn't be just a bag skate. It shouldn't be just a whole bunch of reps. So let's just say, and now if I'm specific about my skill development, like I need my hands are shit, so I need stick handling. Okay, so if I can take in the middle of the week or somewhere that it makes sense, I guess it doesn't matter. It depends on availability, but ideally it'd be in the middle of your practice and two practices, and so that you can apply it. What would happen is you'd be able to play on the weekends, go to a practice, and then one day during the week, I could work on my hands with a skills coach or a guy that could actually break things down. Doesn't have to be like super intense, but it could be just like purposeful. And then I could take that skill and apply it to my next practice and game. So I believe there's only so much room in the brain to absorb and
100%.
yeah, and to have a desire to learn more and to be hungry to learn and hungry to give the effort, especially when it comes to skill development. The effort is not just physically, your brain has to be engaged, and if your brain's not engaged, then it's almost like a wasted lesson, because you're just doing reps of something. So using the brain power when you're doing the skill development actually takes a lot of energy, and it's taxing. So I would say if you're doing it that way, that's what I would say how often it should be. If you missed one week out of the 52, it's okay,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
if you did two once in a while, it's fine. But I would say the optimal amount would be once a week of instruction. I'm not talking about practicing on your own, of instruction. So anybody that's come to me during the season, especially, they said, we want to work on our shooting, whatever it is. I would say once a week, so that you can dial in mentally and work whatever we're doing to a T, and then apply it. And then in that session, you have to know. This is why it's so important to only have one, right? Number one, find deficiencies. Number two, fix the deficiencies. Number three, or one through maybe it's number one, is why you're doing something and doing it correctly. So it's like it's not just shooting a whole bunch of pucks or doing a bunch of stick handling. There's purposeful training, and
Yeah.
that's where you get results.
Yeah, I want to hammer home the how often point too, because that's the biggest thing that I notice is people think it needs to be every day, all day, no breaks, or 5 times a week or 4 times a week or whatever. And it doesn't have to be that. So one of the analogies that I like using is, I'll go back to a school example. If you have a big exam coming up, I remember being in university and sometimes you'd have a gap between exams. So it'd be like you'd have one on Tuesday and then you'd have another one on Sunday. So that means I have, in theory, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to study for my Sunday exam. Okay. If I study as hard as I can all 4 of those days, by the time it's Friday afternoon, I'm done, man. I'm done. My brain is toast. So you need to have some time where you can sit with the information that you were supposed to learn, let it actually digest it, let it sink in, and then you come back at it with a fresh mind the next day or 2 days later or whatever. And that's actually how you learn things. It's not constant hammering the skill. And people can probably relate to that too, where you're working on a problem and it's so frustrating. It's 11:30 at night and you finally just say, F it, I'm going to bed. And then you wake up, go get it after it again, and all of a sudden it's easy and you solve it in 5 minutes. You know, just because you're hammering on the same thing, you get tired of doing the same thing. And like you said, it turns into just another skate.
It doesn't have to be every day.
Right. Yeah. And that's
instruction.
Right. Instruction.
But so that was my next point is you can do it on your own, which is the other benefit.
Yeah, because there's a difference between practicing and understanding. There's a difference between practicing and understanding something new and applying something you already know. Because applying something you already know isn't hard to do. So you can keep practicing and refining that thing. You won't get frustrated. There's not a learning curve. You've already learned the skill. You just now need to apply it and master it. Where it turns into that unconscious competence where you can do it without thinking. And that's where repetitive practice is important. But if it's something new, you need time for that to set in. You can't just keep hammering it day after day after day because you just get frustrated. It needs some time. So that's why another thing that when you're learning something new is the fact that you go sleep after your study or whatever, that helps it to set in. Where you wake up and now you get to try it again. And you're not trying it again while also being barked at to learn something else on top of that. So the layers can't keep coming. It has to stop, take some time to learn it, and then move on. So it's the like you said, once a week, and then apply it in your game, in your practice, intentionally practice the thing that you've learned. That's how it turns into an actual skill that's useful.
Yeah.
You know,
And then reps are great after. Like,
of course.
reps will never hurt you, but
Yeah.
like if you can dial in the mechanics of everything there, that's good.
Right. So the other thing layered in with all that, so that you kind of laid out what the problems can be with too much skill development or too much instruction. But the other part of it is it can cost a lot of money. So even if that was the best option for you, or if it was the best option in general, if it was proven that the more you get taught, the better it is, which isn't the case, but even if it was, some people just can't afford to do it. So now what do you do, right? So I think it's important that you can come up with a strategy that isn't limiting, because I remember being a kid and some of the guys that I played with whose parents would go nuts spending money on this thing and that thing and everything. I would feel like I might be behind, or oh my God, they're so lucky that they get to do that, or I wish my parents would let me do this extra thing or this extra workout, whatever. And it's not even that it was necessarily better, because in the long run, when I look back at those kids that were doing that, it didn't do anything extra for them. But at the time when I was a kid, it felt like, if only I could do this, like if only I could have that, right?
So it's like we were talking yesterday about the social pressure of hockey.
Yeah.
And might not seem like much, but I've seen it with parents, right? And I've seen it with kids. Like, so you as a kid, you would like to go to skate with Coach Andy a couple more times a week or every week. That would have been nice, but it wasn't feasible. So did your life suck? Well, no, as a kid you're sitting there going, but that kid gets to do it, and you know, if I got to do it, I get to be better.
Yeah, because you compare yourself, right?
Yeah, it's the dad that he sees maybe one of the better kids at 10 years old skating with a skating coach or a stick handling coach, and the other parents go, man, like the social pressures, like if I do that for my kid, it's going to help him, and that's a real pressure. You know, I was telling you yesterday, it was the social pressure that, with an experience that I have in hockey, parents coming up to, are you going to go to this tournament? Going to come to the spring tournament? Like, and it was nonstop. So my son was like, Dad, how come I never get to go to but I drew a line in the sand. You're not going to, you're not doing it because it's not going to help you. And I don't have the resources to continue to just pay for hockey year round. So that social pressure is something that is real. It's real. Like how do you deal with the social pressure? It's like there's lines in the sand or something, whatever. So that's why I wanted to talk about some of this, is because it doesn't have to cost you a ton of money all the time, right?
Well, so and first thing, just for you saying you're drawing a hard line, that doesn't mean it never is good for anyone. It just means for you,
for us,
your situation,
yeah.
For you in your situation, with what you guys had going on with your family, that it didn't fit into the puzzle. Other people it might fit, whatever, but you have to make your own choices on what works and what doesn't work. And so when you're talking about what was best for Charlie going through, you identified certain things that'd be good. You identified things that weren't necessary, and you didn't do the things that weren't necessary. But if you're somebody who feels like you're missing out, then there's ways that you can do this where it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. And that's the benefit of, you were talking about going on the road and running sessions for guys in Kitchener or whatever, and up in that area, or with the coaches. Let's say you invest a little bit of money in that. Let's say I'm going to say, hey, Coach Andy, come to Oshawa and let's do a skill session. So it's like, okay, that's going to cost you to do that. But now you've got the teaching points. So if you say, for example, and people can do this, they're allowed to, obviously we're talking about people that have done it, whether you're a coach or parent. So if you want to do that, this is something you could actually do with you if you want to.
Yeah, we just reach out to them.
So if you do this, you can say, okay, Andy, I want to have strictly shooting, strictly skating, strictly whatever the thing is. Andy comes out. Yeah, you have to pay him for this one. Yeah. But if you're there and you're actually paying attention and you listen,
video it if you want.
Yeah, seriously, video the session.
It's worth it.
And then now you have the teaching. So you made that little bit of an investment up front, and now you have the information that you were looking for, and now you can keep using it later.
Well, you can use that one session as a reference point and a teaching point for however long you want.
Absolutely. So if you can do that, if you want to do that, that's an option, and then you have it, and you don't need to say, oh, I need Coach Andy to be here once a week because you weren't paying attention during the session. Because if you say, I want you once a week for shooting, it's like, yeah, we can progress that, but it's not necessary to do that right now. If the
That's
kids are,
that's my point.
yeah, so it's
That's
like
my point.
have you out for a session, or have whatever skills coach you really like in your area that you think is really good, have them out, get the teaching, and then let the kids work on it. And then maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months, maybe once every 5 months, you say, we're going to have Coach Andy come back out because that's what is affordable for us in this situation.
100%.
If you can't even do that, then there's online resources. So the one thing I was going to mention is where you mentioned it at the start is the website, the video series, how it's like it's laid out nice for people. If you're a member with us, you can use that as a resource. Where it's $10 a month.
Yeah,
so
let me just go back for a
Okay.
second, because I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning
Oh,
of it.
no?
I
Okay.
wanted to, and that was what I was going to say. So I'm not interrupting you,
Yep.
but I am.
Okay.
I want our listeners to like as Eric said, like you can go to YouTube, you can get you can go find an instructor that you like, that makes sense, that does the teaching points and stuff like that. If you want, good. If you have a good instructor, like you said, doesn't have to be me, but if you reach out and you get me to do it, like you can film it and you can get some really good points. But find a resource that you can get it. But we have an excellent resource on our website, and we don't talk about it enough. And we're not going to talk. We're not beating it to death. But if you go to powertechhockey.ca, that's our website, and you go to on the top bar, there's one that says videos, and it's our skill drills that I did. And you'll see me with Aaron Ekblad. You'll see me with some pro guys. You'll see with some junior guys. You'll see just me teaching about shooting and all that kind of stuff. And some of them are going to be longer, and it's going to take some patience because there's a ton of teaching. But there's one, for example, that I'm off the top of my head, that is it's called the perfect skating practice, and it touches on all kinds of skating. So you could take that actual hour and apply it to ice time on your own without anybody there. Just do what I did, like learn about it and stuff. You could have the video on the side if you want, and that would be a really good resource. So like you said, you'd have to be a member to look at it. That would cost you $9.99 a month, and then for $9.99 a month to spend $10 to go through it, and if you get one drill, that was worth the best lesson in the world.
Right. And that's as opposed to spending, because if you have whatever 6 guys on the ice and you have a high end skills coach, it's going to cost you a couple $100 for one thing, right? So instead of that, here's a resource, and it doesn't have to be ours. There's other people's stuff that if you are confident that it's quality and you're actually going to get some good teaching, there's other people that do something similar where there's a bank of online things and you pay and you can have access to that. There's another one. If you can't do that, you can always still go to the YouTubes or whatever. You'll have to have a little bit more critical thinking. So it's a little bit more challenging when you're using things that are free resources, because people that do it for a living aren't going to give you just all their best things for free, but it's there still. And so I know you want to go, but before you go, even if you're using YouTube where it's just free drills online, number one, you don't have to pay for a skills coach who maybe isn't the best, that just does that anyways. That's number one. And we were touching on it earlier when I was talking about it like a middleman, right? It's like this skills coach, you're just paying just to get on the ice, and this guy just goes to YouTube and gets his drills anyways.
Several guys.
You could just do that. And some guys, I don't think that's all bad for skills coach to do, because sometimes you find someone who's really good as your own resource as a skills coach, or you want to get new ideas to keep it fresh, and all that's fine. But a lot of guys just go copy and paste, and they don't know what they're teaching. So you can just do that without them. So if you do that, that costs you $0, and then you just have to have be a little bit more critically thinking about what you're actually getting, which is better for you anyways. My point being, there's gradations of things that you can fit into your own cost structure as a family, as a parent, as a whatever, whether it's getting somebody like you to come out once, or someone in your area that's really good, and then keeping that information to reuse. An online resource like we have online, or from somebody else who's just as good, or you're confident is quality that you can get online, or you can go to the free stuff. All of that is to say, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much whether you get the free thing, the paid for thing, the whatever thing, because even if, let's say, you're doing 80% of the work on your own and you're getting free videos off YouTube for 20% of the work being done for you, you're intentionally practicing trying to get better. And especially if we're talking youth levels, you're going to get way better, man. So it doesn't have to be
You're going to get way better, or you're going to get your skill development in.
Right.
That's
so it doesn't have to be the gold bar option where it costs you an extra $5,000 a year, an extra $10,000 a year to do skill development, or it doesn't have to be that. Like you said before, if that's in your budget and you want to do that and you can make your own choices, that's fine. But for people, because a lot of people comment that, like, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to do this.
This is important,
right? So there's ways to do this, and that's not just the skill stuff. That's the fitness stuff. That's everything to do with developing yourself. It doesn't have to be the arm and a leg way. And when I was a kid, I got to do one camp a year. My dad could, and both my parents, not just my dad, my parents could pay for one camp a year, and that was your camp at the end of the summer, right before the season started. That was the only thing I got to do that was a more expensive development option. Once I got older, I never did anything else. I never did one other thing. They would sometimes put me in one of those like generic spring hockey leagues to play like through the summer a little bit, but it wasn't the travel spring hockey. It wasn't any of that. I did the travel spring hockey thing one summer, maybe 2 summers when I was older, and that was definitely like a pressure thing a little bit. But I also used that as extra ice because I didn't get a lot of opportunity when I was playing AAA either. So we could get into that after. But my point is, my parents weren't paying to have me do the highest end skill development once a week, twice a week, all season long. We would do the one camp pre-season, which was the best thing ever, and that was the most excitement I would have all summer.
Oh, you would always come up to me, oh man, I'm pumped. This is the best.
The best. It'd be 6 hours. It'd be 6 hours a day for Monday to Thursday or whatever, and I was just in Candyland, man. It was the best. It was the best thing ever. I didn't do anything else. I ended up being a pretty good player. I played U Sports, very high level. I didn't make it to the NHL, but there's guys that make it to the NHL that did the same thing I did or less, you know? So there's not one thing that you have to do. You can make a plan for development that it fits within what your budget is as a family or whatever, you know?
I want to encourage people to go to the site one more time.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to refer to a couple things after, so it's not a sales pitch here. It's just it's actually really good for you. So I'm going to refer you to the website again, powertechhockey.ca, and it's the video section for the skills. The other reason that you would want to look at it, I'm talking about as a parent and as a coach, as a kid too, really. When you look at the instruction, you can ask yourself, does the people that I go to teach, does this sound anything like that? So you can make a comparison, I guess is the word, of what value a skills coach gives. Because a lot of times people so that's why you like the shock value when people come out and they go, wow, that was like amazing. You learned so much. I learned so much. Coaches, like I didn't know all that stuff. It's like that's the level of teaching you should be, not say you should have every time, but you should be able to have, or it should be touched on. So there'll be some coaching cues there, some teaching cues that'll give you some details on the skill, every skill that we do, and then like as a parent, you can sit there and go, okay, I've been spending, like whatever, $1,000 or $10,000 a year on skill developments. Like they haven't talked about that. Why? Oh, that's why I've been watching my kid go to power skating or stick handling school for 2 years and he's not a better stick handler. He hasn't really learned. I'm just spending money. Or you could say, you know what? That guy is talking the same language that my instructor is, so the guy might be pretty good, right? So you can compare.
You have a reference point.
A reference point, because
absolutely,
just because you have a whistle, a pair of skates, and a stick doesn't make you a coach or a really good instructor or anything like that. There's a lot of work into it to be excellent at it, right?
Yeah,
and then for the kids, it's they could say, oh yeah, my coach, my skills coach told me that, or they could just learn, oh, I'm going to take this one piece, I'm going to try it. And then for coaches, it's coaching cues for you. Like I've got the practices laid out there for you, like skill development. You could take like that skating one. You could do that once a month. You could take the stick handling volume one. That's an hour once a month, once a week if you want to. It's not going to hurt you.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So that was my thing.
That's important to point out too, because for a lot of parents, that's a very common thing that parents will say to me when we talk on the phone or whatever is, I don't know anything about hockey, so I'm just trying to figure out what is good for my kid. And I remember my dad had that conversation with you too.
Yeah.
Like when I was 13 or 14.
It's the best conversation.
It's one of my favorite.
That was one of my favorite conversations, not in the world, but it was like, Your dad's actually a very smart guy,
Mhm.
right? He doesn't look like it at all. But your dad, like, this is what's funny. Eric's dad is a rock star. I saw pictures of him like when he was like a real rock star, and he had the curly hair.
Yeah, the 80s
It's
hair.
the
Yeah,
best,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
Mama had the big
Yeah,
hair, and they were
yeah,
like Tommy Lee and Pamela at
yeah.
the time, right? But your dad came up to me the one day when when it was about time for you to go. You had options in junior and stuff. It was so funny. He brought you in and he comes into he goes, "Can I meet with you, Andy?" I said, "Yeah." Like, just straight to the point. Comes in, he goes, "Okay, I don't know what to do. What do I do with my kid? I trust you." And we talked. I said, so we gave a couple options, what's good, what's bad. And he goes, "Okay, so this one, yeah. Okay, thanks, man." And that's exactly what he did
Yeah. Yeah.
because he didn't
100%.
know. And a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah. Well, and this is why it's if you're fortunate enough to have a resource that you can trust, but that's also proven, right? That's the other part. It's like you have a resource that you can trust, but it's also not just a bullshitter, because sometimes you can get sucked into trusting a bullshitter, which is tough when you don't have any reference point. And that's what's nice about having the reference point. So if you can't connect with someone like you in person, or if there's nobody in your area, or you don't know where to go, or if you're one of the people that sends us DMs asking questions, there's some level of you feel like we could be a good resource. So if that is what it is with us or somebody else in your circle that you can trust as a resource, then you want to be able to access that so you have a reference point if you don't have them right next to you when you need to make a decision or whatever, you know? So it's like if you're going to go to a new camp, or you're going to go for a new team, or you're going to go wherever, you have something else in your ear. So it's not just this thing. You have multiple perspectives coming at you, and then you can try to balance and make a decision about what's right and what's wrong in your specific situation as a family, for your kid, in their development path, or whatever, right? So I think it's really important that you have something where it's just an unbiased opinion or unbiased perspective, where there's no skin in the game. Like and that's the beauty about, for people where they ask us questions, it's like we don't know you, you know? So we're just taking what you say and I'm giving you what I think. And like it is what it is. It's like there's no investment I have
Yeah, I don't
in.
want to lean towards your side and against the coach or call you because I don't like you. I'm going to say, yeah, well, the coach, I can understand why the coach is a jerk to you.
Yeah. So it's just, here's what you said, here's the feedback, and that can go for your skills or your situation or whatever. So it's just nice to have that as a reference point. So I think that's important.
Yeah. All that information might be really good stuff, or maybe it's not. But I think it's good stuff to know. Okay, I can take clips, I can find this. There's this, but where do I go? Where do I go? So this is the cost saving thing. So it's one thing to say, if you want to save money, don't go to as many. Not, by the way, I'm not saying don't do anything. What I'm saying is here's an option, and it's actually a pretty good option. What if you're not going somewhere? Yeah, you're saving money, but what do you do if you want to continue to practice? It's like here's my option for you that I think is very beneficial. If you want to get on the ice, because a lot of people say, "Oh, shooting on the ice is different than shooting in the driveway," which, yeah, that's fair enough. Cool, or whatever. One of the options you could do is you could have 4, 5, 6 buddies get together, rent the ice together, families, and now instead of costing you $40 or $100 an hour, it costs you 10, 15, or 20. And if you that's just an option, and to me that just makes a lot of sense. And you don't have you can still take those drills, you can apply it, and it's the same benefit unless you have a good instructor. So that's what I would do. And then a lot of the things is you can do it off ice. Like you can do a lot of the stick handling stuff and a lot of the shooting in your basement or whatever, outdoor rinks. I know that doesn't last very long anymore, but those are options. And then of course there's a lot of stuff that you can do just in the weight room, in the gym,
Yeah, the
athletically.
thing that I want to touch on that with that too is there's always something better that you could be doing. So don't get so hung up on having the perfect situation, because it doesn't matter how perfect it is, you're always going to say, well, that would be better if I had that too, you know? So you do the best you can with what you have, whether that's in terms of your practicing setup or what can afford as a family or whatever. Just do the best that you can do, because it's not so consequential. It's really, really not. It's really not. the kid, we always say this, but the kid will be the one that drives the ship when they're 14, 15, 16, they're going to make a decision. They're either going to be good enough or they're not. They're going to continue to pursue it or they're not. Anything that you do before that, even in that time, but especially before that, nothing is that significant where it's going to ruin their development as an athlete or whatever. So just do the best that you can with what you have, and it's good. It's not going to be a bad thing, and they're not going to be any better or worse, because like I always say, you can find the kid that had nothing, you could find the kid that had everything, and everybody in between.
Yep.
And somebody made it from everywhere.
Somebody made it. Someone should have but didn't, and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Just another side note on this.
Okay.
I love a good side note.
Yeah, you do.
No, because I thought it was important to say this, because again, you guys do you. Whatever you think is best for your kids. Like I'm not in this for an argument.
Yeah,
right. I'm not in this for an argument. And maybe what we might have sounded like is like we're being negative to instruction and stuff, and it's not what it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was like to create options and to say like it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
So someone might say, well, yeah, but it's good because here, no, I'll do it this way. There are benefits. Let's say for the kid that gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go on the ice, there's benefits to that. And the parents can argue that. And I would agree with you wholeheartedly if the kids are making the decisions, that it shows commitment. Yeah, it does. It does show up to get up on when you're a little bit tired, to get up on a Wednesday morning to go out on the ice at 6:30. That's a commitment. And it shows discipline, and it does show that, and that's very true. And I would say that I'm not making fun of you, right? I would say that's good to learn those things, and maybe it's a 7 o'clock session at night instead of early in the morning, and it's every Wednesday, let's say. That's another. It shows commitment because you might have homework, so you might have to learn time management, all those kind of things. I would totally wholeheartedly agree with you, and the only thing that I argue about that is that if the dads and the mums are making those decisions over the kids.
Yeah, like making them do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or saying this is what we're doing, and you're poking them out of bed. Come on, you got to get going because you got your Wednesday morning. Like if so, I'm just saying, like if that's the situation, you might want to look at that for your kid.
Mm-hmm.
So but flip the coin a little bit. If you told your kid, instead of I'm booking this guy that you're going to skate with once a week every Wednesday morning at 6:30 in the morning, the kid goes, oh, okay, I'll go, and he loves it, right? Like whatever. What if I said, hey, Eric, I got an idea for you. I got some clips that you're going to do your own skill development. We're going to go to one guy once in a while, or we're going to go to the clips and we're going to find some stuff. And what I want you to do is I want you to pick out the ones that you like to do. Would you like to do that? I'm going to rent the ice. You take 4 guys, 5 guys on the ice, and then you kind of do your own thing. And you might see the kid go the night before or in the week actually get involved and excited about, oh, we're going to work on this drill. Because I remember Charlie, he'd come up to me. Remember when he was a kid? Dad, can we do this drill? And he'd think of drills. And most of them were shit.
Yeah.
Till he got older and understood it. But it was like he wanted to do it, right?
Yeah.
So like if you give the kids the opportunity to say, if I get 4 sessions for you on Wednesday mornings for the next month, and we go to that site and we pick out one drill or one session, would you want to do it, and you and your friends, and kind of figure it out on your own? Tell me that's not beneficial.
And fun.
It's great. It's great. And now it's leader. Now it's not just getting up in the morning. Now we'll see if they're committed. They're going to be jacked. I get to run my own shit. They might be nervous because they got their buddies they got to impress or something like that. But I bet you they're going to be jacked. They're going to do it. They're going to learn. They're going to be. They're going to get up. You go to wake them up in the morning. They'll have their skates on already. But that's another option. Like that's just like again, it's another way of looking at things and thinking of things. Not to say that I'm right about everything, but it's just options, right? And sometimes fresh set of eyes on things is good.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too, because then now it's fun. When the kids get to do their own practice and they get to practice the things they like, it's not necessarily optimal because maybe they're not working on their deficiency because they like practicing this other thing more, but that's not the point. Like the point is you're getting them interested, you're getting them driven to do it, because those other things will come. The desire to work on the things they're not good at, all those things are going to come, right? So I think that's important. So I think now with all that kind of framing, I wanted to kind of talk about, I guess the parents will be able to apply this, but kind of more for the kids too, for the kids that listen, is how to develop or create your own practice plan or development plan without having a coach to hold your hand the whole time. Because this will be a resource that you can use if you're just at home, or if you're using videos that are online, or if you rent the ice with your buddies. this is kind of like a framework you can use to practice on your own without having to have somebody like you or myself hold your hand to walk you through it every step of the way. So the first thing we were talking about was in terms of creating the plan is first you got to identify what it is that you want to work on. So if you're going to rent the ice or whatever, you don't want to just go there with no plan. Like you need to, you want to have a plan of something that you're going to do. This is what a coach would do, right? You have, or a skills coach.
Should.
You would, yeah, should, right?
Some
So,
don't. Some
yeah,
don't.
I know. But you want to have an idea of what you need to work on, right? So you want to
Yep.
start with like your
Yeah.
one or two things or whatever. So you, if you want to go on that for a
Yeah.
bit.
So you want to look at, okay, like, so you have a plan. What do I want to work on? So what do I need, or what do I want to? They're two different things. But if you want to get better, try to find something that you need to work on. So let's say it's skating. Okay. So let's say I need to be a better skater. Well, what area of skating do you think you need? If you can't figure it out, that's fine. But you need to go to skating, and then you got to come up with something. So again, you can go to your YouTubes, or go to previous sessions that you've done, or you could go to our site and you can pull out the perfect power skating hour, and that'll touch on kind of everything. And then look at the details of listen to it, look at the details, and you that'll help you. It's agility. Like there's one that we have on there, just skating agility and stick handling agility. So that's what I would do, is you look at what I want to do, then go to the resource to find it, whether it's those things that we just talked about, and then try it.
Yeah, so that's that you already got the
I
second
get the
one.
second one?
Yeah, so it's the resource, right? So find some kind of a resource, whether it's you hired a coach for one session and keep that for the next 5. You have the videos online. You went to YouTube and picked some things, but find a resource. And I want to reiterate again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be optimal teaching. It doesn't have to be the best skills coach ever. It doesn't have to cost you all kinds of money. It doesn't have to be any of that. Whatever fits with what you can afford as the parents, or whatever your kid is willing to do with his time, it can be that. It doesn't have to be the best thing ever. So you need to have some kind of a resource to guide you in terms of what to do. So first point was you find your one or two things you want to work on for this session or for the next 12 weeks of sessions that you're going to do. And then you go to your resource and pick. Within an hour, you could probably do somewhere, depending how long you do it, somewhere between 4 and 8 drills within that hour where you can work on.
One.
Yeah, or one, depending on what it is you want to work on.
The point though would be when you commit to something, say like I want to work on skating for that hour. Let's say it's an hour, or maybe you can say skating and stick hand, whatever. But commit to it. Like it's the same thing as going to the gym. I know younger guys might have a harder time, but maybe dads could help with this. Is if you go to the gym, you don't go there and say, okay, I'm going to do 3 squats and 12 sit-ups and whatever. You go, okay, I want to work my legs. So what am I going to do for legs? So number 1 would be I'm going to warm up. Okay, so that's part of the hockey thing too. I'm going to do a little warm up. That could be your inside edging. Second thing I'm going to do is for my legs days, I'm going to do squats. Okay, so squats, and you get how many squats? I'm going to do 4 sets of 10. So then you don't leave that until it's completed, right? So it's the same thing as this: is maybe you got your inside edge, maybe your outside edge, just to warm up, right? To get loose, and then you start working on. Maybe I'm working on power, so you go through that drill, that thing, and you go, okay, hey, I got 4 sets or 4 lengths of long strides. I got 4 sets of long strides with power with crossovers, and I got 4 lengths, and then you do the program.
Right.
Commit to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it has to be something where you have a plan, and now you're going to commit to it for a period of time, because that's a big issue with people making progress too, is they change the plan too much. So the easiest example of this is with workouts. If you follow any kind of workout prescription or any kind of workout program, it will never be less than 4 weeks. Because unless
you're an Olympic athlete with a pro coach that knows that your muscle adaptations are like that.
Right.
But
right.
Generally
speaking,
for the most part,
if you want to progress, let's say you want to get stronger and you want to work on let's say we'll keep it the legs, you want to do squats. If you do squats the first week, then deadlifts the second week, then a single leg squat the third week, and then you're changing everything all the time. Yeah, you're still doing movement patterns with your legs, but you're not adapting to that particular movement that you wanted to work on. And it's the same thing with a skill. So you need to have a period of time where you're committed to doing it no matter what. So if you're like, I'm bored of this, you committed to 4 weeks of doing this, or committed to 8 sessions of doing this, or whatever.
Or 2 if that's what you pick.
Yeah, or
like,
if 2,
pick something and
whatever
live
you
with it.
pick,
Yeah.
stick to it, you know, and don't change things on the fly. Try to stick to it. You can make modifications within your day, right? But try not to change too
But the
quick.
other thing is that when you're young, like we're not being totally specific either. So if you pick one day, I want, like this week I want to do stick handling, next week I want to, you're doing general skills. That's fine. But just we're just showing you how to do a program.
Exactly. So that's the next one. Then the next thing is going to be deciding how you want to execute the practice. So that's going to be, am I going to rent the ice with my buddies? Am I going to do it at home? Or what is my setup going to be to do this practice? So optimally, hockey practice things on the ice are better because you're actually in the environment of hockey, but it doesn't have to be. It can be, if you don't have access to ice, if you can't afford to rent the ice, if you can't find 6 buddies that want to do it with you, you can do it at home. You can do it in the driveway. I did most of my practice. I used to live on a cul-de-sac. I would put my rollerblades on and I would float around in there doing my practice. Wasn't on the ice. Was it as good as being on the ice? No.
You get a slide board for skating. You can get plyo jumps, one-legged squats as little kids without weight. It's really good.
Yeah, you don't need to have any specific thing, but you can make your environment work. So pick the medium that you're going to use. If you're going to say, okay, my parents said that they'll help me set up 8 sessions on the ice with my buddies, great, do that. And then you can take those drills that you got from your resource and say, okay, there's going to be 8 of us on the ice. So mom and dad, obviously you can help if the kids are really young, but if you're a little bit older and you want to do that, that's perfect. So you can use that on the ice, or you can modify it to be done off the ice. If you watch the stuff that we're doing in the videos on our site, for example, all of the shooting stuff that you do, you can do off the ice. You don't have to do it on the ice, So it doesn't have to be exact to what you're seeing with the resource you're using. You can modify it depending on what the environment is that you have. So pick one and then execute your plan that way. Anything on that?
No. And yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. So no, I'm good.
Yeah. So that's kind of how you're going to come up with the plan and execute the plan. Those are kind of the steps, right? So then the last thing I wanted to touch on was just kind of like the individual skills part of it, and maybe some of your thoughts on each of those things. So between shooting, skating, passing, stick handling, and then maybe we can touch on the fitness thing a little bit, and then we can wrap up from there. So want to take it from there?
Skating?
Yeah, we can start with skating. So if you're going to do your own development for skating.
Yeah, real.
Just give an example.
Okay, so when you're young, get on the ice. No, here's my first argument though. No, rebuttal. Is that the same thing?
Depends on what your next sentence is.
I know. What I already know is when people listen to this, there's going to be a group out there that says you always better to shoot with a shooting coach first to learn how to shoot before practicing else, because you're going to on your own, because you're going to get bad habits. Tons of people say that.
No.
You're going to get another camp that says doesn't matter what you do as long as you're doing something, or it doesn't even matter, right? And it falls somewhere in between, really.
Yeah.
So same with skating. A lot of people say, well, you need a skating coach right away so you don't get bad habits. It's like, no, it's not. Whatever your belief is fine. But when you're younger, so let me just stick on that for 1 second. Yes, a shooting coach and a skating coach can help you, but we would never recommend someone wants to start skating from zero and go, I need a skating coach. It doesn't work that way. Same with shooting. So I understand where people say it would be helpful, yes, but you need reps to a certain degree to even, let's say, just have a basic holding the stick and whatever. So that's for those people. But okay, so skating. Get on the ice and skate, especially when you're young. Just go out and skate. Like if to spend time on all the correction stuff, the brain's not ready for that, to have that much instruction. So just get out and skate. Skate as often as you can. Go not as often as you can, but go out there and skate and have fun. As you get a little bit older, you can start working on specific things. But the couple things that I always say that are really good, and again, go on our site and you'll find this stuff. Is like just doing inside edge with good posture. And there's several ways that you can do it. You can do it, and you can add a change of pace to it. You could add cross, whatever. You can do all kinds of stuff to it. But if that's one thing that you can do, inside edge work, where you get nice and deep, you get your upper body nice and level, and you really work on your balance, getting your feet underneath your hips. That's very, very good for any player at any level. and that's not, and it builds some leg strength and stuff like that too for young guys. That's something, and pay attention to the details of extending that stride all the way out and recovering underneath. That is something that is very, very beneficial. So that would be number one. So anyways, go to the site, get some ice, work on something. Yeah.
Okay.
Shooting again, shoot a lot of pucks. Like you don't have to have a shooting coach early on, but like this is where shooting coaches or someone that can help you is good. Once you get the maybe a check-in once a month, once every 6 months, every 3 months, that's actually very good. But you want to have someone quality that can teach you the little things. You'll never go wrong with shooting pucks in the driveway. Well, let's just call it what it is, okay? Connor Bedard, because there's been a lot of talk about his shot and stuff like that, but where was he shooting his pucks? They did a story on it. So all the people that this is exactly what I needed to do. All the people that are arguing you need a shooting coach to tweak it or to make it or else you get bad habits, there's your answer. He shot in his driveway and broke glasses and he shot. I've never seen someone shoot a ton of pucks that didn't have a good shot. Because you figure it out, right? If you have the desire to shoot that often, you're going to figure out what, like what I told you when I was a kid. I would have a really good shot and I'd go, okay, what happened there? Why? Where you're strong, like, and all that kind of stuff. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that with the shooting in particular, because the ice isn't necessary for this, they're like the skating is different because there's not a lot of, like, you can still do things to help your skating off the ice. There's a ton you can do in terms of like fitness things and whatever, but there's nothing that recreates the mechanics of skating other than actually skating. Shooting's not like that. You can do that off the ice, and are there differences between that and on the ice? Some differences, mostly subtle, but shooting off the ice is basically the same as on the ice. So if you have a coach that can help tweak, that's great. If you can't, then, or you don't have one, or you don't want to listen to someone, if you just shoot, you'll get better. Now, if you're going to use the resource, this is where, as you start to get older, like when you're young, it really doesn't matter. You need the reps, so get the reps. But if you're going to use a resource where someone's instructing you, then you need to actually pay attention to the details of what they're saying. Because this is the biggest issue I find when we're teaching kids on the ice, off the ice, whatever. We take the time to explain why, but the kids aren't really listening to why. So if you're going to invest in a resource to any degree, even if it's a free one, if you're going to spend your time, then actually pay attention to the details. Otherwise, it doesn't matter that you're using the resources or at the camp or you hired a coach. It doesn't matter. The details are the reason that you get a coach for something. So you can just do reps on your own. If you're going to do that, you don't need the resource. If you have the resource, then pay attention to the actual teaching points. That's how you can help to, I don't want to say skip steps, but it can help to make the learning process go a little bit quicker,
yeah.
Right?
Well, so you just reminded me of something though with shooting, because a lot of people will say, and then this is very true, shooting on in the basement or on a sheet of whatever, it just seems a lot different than on the ice. And the answer to that is it's not because you can't shoot. The answer to that is because in hockey, skills blend. So you won't be a good shooter on the ice if you don't have good weight transfers. You're not a good skater, but you don't have a good balance and all those things. You had a foundation, or you can't weight transfer properly, or if you're off balance, like your head's over your toes, like so that's, your shooting will not be good if you can't skate properly. It can't, because you don't move your body well enough. It's like you won't be. And if you're a good shooter and you get a decent skater, there's a high probability that your stick handling should be okay, like good enough, and then it's workable. You know what I mean? So like the people that say, well, I have to get on the ice to shoot because it's different. So yeah, you have to get on the ice to work on all the skills, but your shooting will be just fine if you do it in your basement or in the driveway, like 100%. Now, is it different when you're coming in and you're trying to do a shot where you're, moving your feet, hiding the puck in your feet and snapping it off a little bit, but that's so teachable if you just do the foundation work.
Yeah. And I think it's the same basically goes for stick handling too. It's very similar to shooting. It's like you can do everything off the ice. The one thing I'll say about all of this stuff too is I think the big thing that is tough when you're a kid is feeling like you have a plan, because you don't know how to format things. And it's something that you take for granted. But I remember a few weeks ago, I had one of the younger teams in here, and I had written on the board 4x10, right? 4 by 10, 4 sets of 10. That's what that means, 4 sets of 10. I knew what that meant and assumed they got the point, right? They get what that is saying. Because I said, you're doing this, you're doing 4 sets of 10. I said it out loud to them, and then they go, what does 4x10 mean? Even though I just said 4 sets of 10. And I said, oh, like this is the notation of 4 sets of 10. So one thing you can do that can help you, I'll use the stick handling as an example because that's what I'm talking about now. Very easy to do off the ice as well, is I would set up 5 cones and I would take the drills that we would do at your camp. So we would do the chickies all the way through. So just stick handling through as your warm up. Then we would do a forehand fake, bunch of reps of that, a backhand fake, bunch of reps of that, toe drag, bunch of reps of that, and then toe drag with a spin or whatever. So I would do just the stick handling one. So it'd be hands, then it would be forehand fake, backhand fake, toe drag. And I would say, I'm going to do this 5 times each. And sometimes just putting a number to it, like I'm going to do this 5 times each, or I'm going to do this 10 times each. If you've never made a plan before, it's not that important what the number is, but it can help you feel like you have a plan.
Yeah, when you can see the end.
Yeah, right? So you can say, I'm going to do 5, 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 or whatever. That can just help you feel like you have an actual plan or a format to what you're doing. So I think that's important regardless of the skill. Stick handling was my example, but you can do that with shooting. I'm going to shoot 100 pucks at every corner, and I'm going to do that 4 times today. So you're doing 400 pucks, 100 in each corner, and then do that 4 times, and then you're done for the day, or however many you want to shoot.
25, right? 25. Or 500, it doesn't matter.
And then skating, it's the same thing. It's like we're going to work on power skating today, or I'm going to work on my squats today. If it's on the ice, then you can say I'm going to do 5 lengths of everything. Or if I'm in the gym, I'm going to do 5 sets of everything for my legs today, or whatever. So it doesn't have to be an optimal plan, but it'll make you feel like you have a format. So you can have something to follow. So even you can write it on a whiteboard or write it on a piece of paper, and you can just go walk through it. So it's easy to follow, and then you're not feeling like you're making things up on the spot or that you don't know when to stop and switch to other drills. Just arbitrarily pick a number. Just say 5 or say 10, whatever it is. And then that will help you feel like you have a flow to what you're doing, right? And then you'll get better over time. If you say, okay, I'm going to do 10 lengths of everything in the hour that I'm on the ice. Well, maybe the first one you did, you only got through 2 things because 10 was too long. And then next time be like, hey, that was too long. I'll do 7 or whatever. And then you can start to tweak your plan that way, right? So the last one I wanted to touch on, and then we can kind of go, is the fitness stuff. And this is along the same lines as everything else. The fitness is probably the easiest because you don't need any equipment for anything. So you can find anything you want fitness-wise, online for free.
Yep.
So that could be on our YouTube channel. I post all the exercises I use in the actual program I do with my guys here. Clips of all the exercises I do are there. You can go to ours. You can go to the next fitness guy that you like. If you've never done a workout program before, then just pick basic movements because that's what you need to learn. So do a push, a pull, a hinge, and a squat. Those are your 4 basics, basically. So pushing with your upper body.
If you're a young guy, just squat or just do a one-legged thing. Just find something. Try
something,
it.
Right?
Get something out of it.
So find just something basic and just do same thing. Arbitrarily pick a number. Pick 4, pick 5, whatever, however many sets of whatever you want to do, and just run through it that way. If you want to go for a run, set a distance. Say, I'm going to run around the track at the park by my house 10 times. And then you're good. And you're starting to build some skills on how to make a plan for yourself where it costs you $0. You don't need to rely on anybody for help. And then anything you get on top of that ends up being a bonus, right? When you're making a plan. Yeah. So that's all I want to say on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to add to the fitness thing because it's actually very, very important. So I have this thing that I'm not sure. By no means am I saying don't go to a power skating coach. Not saying it. But I have a thing where there's so many people that go to power skating coaches and I just don't see where they got better. Yeah. Okay. And I'm a pretty big believer that it would take a lot to change someone's mechanics, especially as they get older. Prove me wrong. I'm fine with that. Like I'm good with that. But I've been through a lot of guys. What I have seen in the gym or playing different sports, you become an athlete with strength. If you're becoming a good athlete, with strength comes more speed or more power or whatever, just naturally. So by moving the body properly in the gym, the proper hip hinges, adding loads to the to your legs and all that stuff, your back and all that kind of stuff, you become a better athlete. So it transfers from the gym to the ice. It just does. And I'm not a rocket scientist like you,
Yeah.
but it just does.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with the gym is the mechanics is basically where the transfer comes in, right? The strength and all that is good. The speed and explosiveness, that helps obviously, but it transfers a lot into your skating mechanics, definitely.
So a young kid it might not be going to the gym, but so I want to be clear about that. Young kids might not go to the gym, so can't lift weights or don't have access to it. That's fine. You can run up a hill. You can jump up a hill. You can do air squats. You can do one-legged squat or lateral jumps. You can do all those things are the same thing.
Yep.
It's just different words and different, with barbells and rear foot elevated split squat is still a one-legged squat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So
cool. That's I think that's good. Do you have anything you want to say to wrap her up here? Or no?
No, I'm good.
You're good.
Good.
So I got one to wrap it up. So I was listening to my boy Jocko, and Jocko's not for everybody because he's a rah kind of guy, but he has a quote that I really like, and it kind of speaks to the humility that it takes to learn. And I remember, I'll tell briefly kind of the story that he was telling, and it applied to myself, and I remember listening to it when I was younger. And I think it kind of applies here. So he was talking about going through Navy SEAL training, and his goal was to work his way up to be one of the high-ranking officers as a Navy SEAL. And he was saying, like, no matter what I did, I just wasn't getting promoted. I wasn't getting noticed. I wasn't getting moved up the ranks. And I couldn't figure out why. Then he went on to talk about how he was, by his own words, someone who kind of thought he knew everything, kind of thought like he had it all going on. And he had like a moment of reflection when other guys, in moments he thought for sure I would be getting a promotion, someone else would get it. So he said he finally had kind of the realization that when he was going through his development as a young guy, his quote was, if you're so smart, talking to himself, if you're so smart, why aren't you winning? And I remember having that exact, I heard the quote much later, but I had that exact reaction to myself when I was finishing up junior. Because I would have why is nobody noticing this? Why am I not getting better at that? Why isn't anyone picking me for this? And I had a similar mindset of, I'm a smart guy. Like, I know what I'm doing. I know, like, I get good grades. I'm good at sports. I got a lot of stuff going on for me. That's good. Like, why is nobody...
Why isn't this working?
Why isn't it working out?
Good question.
Right? And that was the quote that I like to use that kind of gave me my piece of humble pie. It's just like, yeah, like if you're so smart and you know everything, why isn't it working out for you? Because guys that are really smart and have it all figured out, it works out, So when you're going through this as mom and dad or as the kid, and you're trying to train yourself, you're trying to learn new things, or you're trying to come up with a development strategy for your kids, if there are problems with the strategy that you're currently using, whether it's your practice habits or whether it's your skill development coach, then maybe you need to reevaluate whether or not you actually know what you're doing. And maybe it's time to have some humility to come up with a new strategy. And I think that's important in the context of what we're talking about, because developing on a proper path is not an easy thing. And people talk about it, whether it's having a skills coach or doing their own workouts or whatever. Everyone seems to know all the answers. Well, you got to do this. If you listen to the Joe Dad on the team that has all the answers about everything, it seems like they know. Everything sounds good, but at the end of the day, that person they still have their problems, or you still have your problems, even though you're following that strategy. As a kid, I remember going to the gym and guys knew how to work out, and they said, oh, this is the best workout plan, or this is the best training protocol, or whatever. And I thought the same thing, like when I was like 16, 17, 18. And I remember my dad asking me sometimes, like, do you think that's what you should be doing? Like, are you sure like you should be doing all this? You're it's the season. You sure you should be at the gym 4 times a week? And me being like, what do you know, Dad? Like, you don't know anything, right? I'm the one that's doing the workouts. Like, you're not the one doing the workouts. What do you know? And I remember that piece, that humble pie was important. I wish I would have had it earlier, because it would have helped me to avoid a lot of mistakes. But don't be so sure that you know how to do everything, and you know how to formulate a plan properly. So if you can approach what we're talking about today with some humility, and be willing to make adjustments to your plan, and don't be so set in your ways and think you know everything and think you have the best coach already and you have the best way forward and you need to do all this crazy stuff for development. Just keep the humility of it in mind, because when you think you know, most of the time you don't really know.
Well, this is so I got a quote.
Yeah, go
I've
ahead.
been dying. So you said that if you're not winning, or if you're so smart, why aren't you winning? My coach just says, pigs don't know, pigs stink.
Yeah.
Or you're acluistic. It's not a real word, but I just started that a long time ago. Acluistic. It means without a clue.
Yeah.
It's not even in the dictionary,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
my own. But you're 100% right. You know, it's like the dad that comes in and says, "What do we do?" And then they go, "Yeah, but." It's like pigs don't know, pigs stink. You don't know what you don't know. That's why you don't know what you don't know. You know, you walk around and it says, "Wow, it stinks around here." Say, "Yeah, you're the pig.
Yeah.
You're the pig. Everywhere you go, it stinks, man." Right? No, but it's true.
For sure, man.
It's like the humble pie is like a huge thing. It's like sometimes you seek out information, listen, and maybe your buts aren't the right thing. You know, maybe but just listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Or but maybe what you're doing doesn't work, or whatever. Like, whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Okay. Hope that was useful. If you guys are enjoying the podcast, give us the old 5-star if you can. It'll take you 2 seconds. If you want to become a member, you can do that. And we'll see you guys next week.